noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. Muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, your time, love, and support you guys extend my way. From the heart, gracias. Also, do please like, share, and subscribe. Well, to get into what I want to touch on today, I do want to continue with my story. I know I get sidetracked and get out of my story again. I do it in the sense of respect, you know. I don't want to bore nobody. But nevertheless, I want to go back to my story, right? And continue off. Sorry if I make this sweet and to the point. It's just not a good day for numerous reasons. But, anyways, like I touched on the last time, right? After we got out of the Ceferezo, then we went back to Culiacan and, it was rough. For It was rough, not just us getting our butt whooped, but there was a lot of time to catch up. So basically, we're there resting, but as I stated in the last time, we were doing little things around the area, right? But anyways, we got called, all of us, to get together and meet with the old man, right, from Ontario. So we did so, right, in this little rancho here in Culiacan. And as we were there, a lot of things were discussed. For example, when we got back, the three pilis are always with us. They started doing what they do, right, which is politic against one another. When they went back to Chango or Mono from Ontario, at the time we were there, we got beat in, right? And he got shielded, he got protected, and got taken to the B7 down there to protect the custody, and he got out before us. A lot of things happened, and and Richie, they were pushing that issue, right? They want to know why. But at the end of the day, I agree with the old man, right? It just didn't make sense the Vato talked, because if he would have done so, they would have clipped us. They didn't put us on record till about the second week we were there, right? Because they were waiting to see what came out on us first, right? And if anything negative would have came out, believe me, would have been thrown out like trash, right? I think a lot of factors played into effect. For example, even though O and Richie, they're members, they don't have it on their body, right? They have, for example, Monteflores and neighborhoods, but not. And Chango, Mono did. So that could have played into effect. A lot of things, right? I won't go off assuming things. But nevertheless, it didn't stop them until the old man told him just over with it. And like I said, he made sense in that sense. Anyways, after that, he addressed that it was time for us to boot up, right? But it wasn't gonna be like one of them things we were tempted or used to, right, up to this point, which was go in like simple pochos, right? Go in, play the part, meet the mark, and hit and take off. There was a big issue with a camarada that was fighting the Plaza Oaxaca for a while. He was having resistance, and were to go out there and support, you know, mainly Sinaloa, they wanted a foot in there, and I guess the vatos from MS, they, they were helping, right? But the other side, and at this point, it really brought a shocker to me when it came to MS. For example, I remember when I first got busted in Quilmas, all the camaradas from MS, they were worried about getting deported, right? Because of the Mano Negra and X, and just to see how it would manifest for them to be so deep and strong, right? But anyways, that was the main issue. We were gonna go support, how clear the plaza. It wasn't gonna be like one of them. You go up in the cerro, we stats out till we come down and hit, right? It was gonna be full force, head on. So it was firmes. But anyways, the meeting was to the point, right? Our first stop was gonna be in Veracruz with an old camarada, right? The homie bouncer from West Side Pomona. I didn't know the homie at this time, and the time I had been in Mexico, though, I have heard good things about him, right? In the sense, he was still a camarada, and he was holding position, right, as a camarada, not having to do anything but just enjoy it, right? After so many years of putting in loyalty, you could say that. So, anyways, we would eventually make our way out to Veracruz, right? To a little rancho that's called Cordoba, Cordoba, something to that effect, right? Well, it wasn't in this rancho. You see, this was the main rancho. You get to this place and then you still go uphill about 10, 15 minutes, right, to get to the rancho where the homie had it, that he was taking care of. So we went up there and, we were to stand still till the Billies got there, because at this point it was just nothing but homies, camaradas. So, anyways, we got there. He directed us from the main rancho to the spot, and it was feedmas in the sense that we didn't have all that extra, right? We were among camaradas, equals, right? So for a minute, we took our mind from that stage of thought, right? I've always been on the go, on the must. But I got time to meet the camarada, and what I want to touch on, without sounding corny or anything, is, you guys know that have been following my story. I had been out already for a little bit, but it was always something, right? Every day I woke up to something. So, I sincerely, I had gotten out of prison, but it was never, one of them times to really take that in, right? After doing close to 24 years, I never took it in. I never gave myself the time to do so. So, anyways, one day I woke up between, I don't know, 4 and 6 in the morning. One of them where the sun starts to come out far from. And like I mentioned before to you guys, I had this habit, or I got used to being up in the mountains so much, that I used to like just picking up a toy and just going off, right? And just walk with the moonlight. And that day I got uneasy, right, resting. So I got up and I went down the trail to the entrance of the ranch. Again, it's uphill, right? And I sat in this rock, and it was actually the first time I took in freedom, right? The peace around me. It was, again, I don't want to sound a kayaya, but it was beautiful, right? The sun coming out. All you saw was nothing but trees and mountains and green and nature, right? And it's like, man, the things we let go of. When we're in the streets, we strive to be locked up or be put down under dirt. And there's so much things out there to enjoy. But anyways, again, sorry I lost track. But the time came where, the Peely started arriving. They came from everywhere, or at least the ones that could. For example, you guys know, oh, Richie, Mono came, and then Sapo from Valles, he came down. Rudy couldn't, but he sent a representative to come down. And, well, numerous. I'll just leave it at that, right? Here in Mexico, we met at the homie's ranch, right? At Bouncer's ranch. And basically, we were able to discuss a little bit more what we were going to do there. The camarada Bago that we were going to go support came through too. And basically, just ran us down. It was hectic, right? According to him. And certain towns is where we had to come in and just help clear, right? And it wasn't gonna be like, let's go pick this individual up or this. Nah, it was, if you don't know him, knock him. Them type of thing. So it was being clear, basically. If you had an issue with it, with doing things as so, there was no need for you to follow us. Like the option was there, right? But anyways, again, all the camaradas that were there had done their share, knew what time it was, and there was no backpedaling, right? So we just, vámonos, let's boogie, let's get it done. Anyways, you know, all basically tried to bring an issue up again, and he got shot down by the old man, right? Just to make it clear, that old man, when he was in his position, you could say, because of his activity, he was the main one, right? And he took off too. We ended up staying like 2, 3 days more, right? So again, I was able to converse with the homie a lot, right? And he told me straight up, look, things are hectic, but you'll eventually get there. You know, you'll get there. Sin palabras, And anyways, we parted. We parted when Bago said, because it was a big issue just for us to get into Oaxaca, right? Because you guys know how Mexico work. You gotta go on this pointers. You got everything, right? So everything gets hectic real quick, which I will touch on my next story, right? Getting into Oaxaca. What I want to touch on is the next. I don't know. I don't know what the issue really was, but oh, Richie, they just couldn't help it, right? Again, it's just part of their mentality, I believe. For some reason, they didn't like the homie bouncer. You know, I don't know really how the streets are mapped out. If there are enemies on the streets, I know Richie from El Monte. I know Pomona's next to Ontario. Whatever, right? I don't know. But at the end of the day, they press. They try to politic against him. Keep in mind, we're on the way. The Pili stayed behind till we opened Cancha. And we didn't find out till later, right? And what it came down to was when other Pilis, I guess, weren't really focusing or doing what they wanted them to do. They went to Sinaloa, right? They accused Bouncer of picking, taking, missing material, which was a lie. Homeboy had that position for 15 years, you know, and then he was 20 down in the States, being somebody's secretary holding West Pomona for them. So it was all lies. However you seen it, homeboy was honest, you know. And when we heard about it, it was just by the mention by the old man, right? Hey, Bouncer had messed up. They're gonna go pick him up. You know, in Mexico, when they say they're gonna pick you up, it's over. You're done. You're not coming back. You know, we all know what that means. Anyways, within time, we ended up finding out. And me personally, I called that old man, right? And I told him, I wanted to address something con todo respeto. And it was the push these individuals did on Bouncer. You know, it's not correct. It's not right. It's not true. You know, and I don't know why they were doing it, but we're taking on our own in a place where we need our own when there ain't many of us. And as always, I got shot down. He told me straight up, look, Chino, I understand things don't make sense, but you're Sureño, they're Pilis. They don't need to make sense. You know, as we to leave this alone, focus on what's in front of you. There's big issues that are gonna come up, gonna present themselves. I understand your angle, but I respect you for your doings, your family, and leave it alone. According to no one, we never had this conversation. I'll be honest, the first time it really stung, you know, because I believe I was getting old of that put up, shut up thing, right? That you have to do as a camarada. Nevertheless, I was still an idiot, right? Because I did exactly that, right? I played 1,000 scenarios in my head and I pushed forward because he was right. Things were presenting or were going to present themselves that were needed a full focus. But my thing is, from the minute we got back to Culiacan, these individuals, one way or another, were pushing issues. On a personal note, when we were up there on that rancho, like I said, we all done our share. We were all equal, right? Sureños. There was peace. We didn't even discuss certain things. It was on a different life tip, right? I think that's why I actually got to sit down and see what was around me. Not just stay focused on what's ahead. but it's the type of thing that, you know, we're meant to put up with. And again, if you're there, there's no buts or is, buck up, com- complete the mission the way you're supposed to. But for those that are not there, this is just an inside look on how that the gato mentality is. I know a lot of people don't like me using that word, but tell me what would you call a person that's always chasing that high and that's causing conflict, stepping on the next man that's supposed to be their brother. Again, don't get caught up in the tornado. Be smart. Stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones. Saludos, everyone.